Have you ever wondered why the worst pain you felt from a woman, betrayal, silence, rejection, humiliation eventually becomes the sharpest weapon you carry into every future relationship? Imagine the moment you were ghosted after months of giving everything, or the night you found out she was texting another guy while swearing she loved you. That cut, that wound, felt unbearable at the time. But here's the truth. Pain is the forge. It is where weak illusions die, and where real men are carved out of fire. Most men run from it. You're here, listening, which means you've already stepped into the fire. The reason pain matters is because women, consciously or not, test men through it. A woman pulls away not always because she doesn't care, but because she wants to see what you do when she stops feeding you affection. If you collapse, if you beg, if you flood her phone with desperate texts, she knows you're dependent. You've revealed you don't stand on your own foundation. That's when her respect dies. And when respect dies, attraction follows. Pain shows you how much of your identity is tied to her approval, and it rips it out of you until you face the ugly truth you were never in control. Take the guy who dates a beautiful woman, makes her the center of his world, and then panics when she takes longer to reply. She notices his anxiety before he does. She senses the shift in his tone when she says she's busy. That unease, that neediness, is like blood in the water. She doesn't always do it intentionally, but her instincts drive her to test whether he's really as strong as he claims. And if he isn't, she pulls harder, more silence, more distance, until he cracks. That's where most men fail. They think love is about constant reassurance, constant giving, constant chasing. But in truth, love is respect. And respect only flows toward a man who can endure discomfort without breaking. Here's what pain does: it teaches you to stop reacting. The first time she withholds attention, it feels like death. You feel the walls closing in, your mind spinning with questions. Did I say something wrong? Is she seeing someone else? Should I call her again? That spiral is weakness in real time. But after you've been burned enough, something shifts. You learn to sit in the silence. You learn that a woman's attention is not oxygen, it's a test. And the man who wins is the man who does nothing. He doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't perform. He lets her absence echo back to her. He stands still, and that stillness is terrifyingly powerful. Picture this. She ignores your text for 2 days. Instead of double texting, you go about your life. You hit the gym, meet with friends, work on your craft. When she finally circles back with a casual, "Hey," you don't reward her with instant relief. You answer hours later, short, calm, detached. Not rude, but unmoved. That single act flips the script. You're no longer the man desperate for her light. You are the man whose fire burns regardless. Suddenly, she feels the gap. She feels the risk of losing you. That's when pain transforms into leverage. You stopped letting her pull the strings, and now she's drawn closer, not out of manipulation, but because she sees your spine. Pain also teaches you the cost of overinvestment. Think back, how many times did you give too much? Too early expensive gifts? Endless compliments, constant availability. You thought it would secure her affection. But what did it actually do? It suffocated her. It sent the message, you matter more than me. And the moment she sensed she was your world, she lost the desire to be in it. That pain, the gut punch of seeing her bored, distant, or worse, interested in another man, teaches you the cold reality a woman wants to orbit your world, not become it. Your mission, your standards, your frame. These are the gravity that keep her respect intact. Without them, she floats away. The hardest truth is this pain reveals that women respect indifference more than devotion. Not coldness, not cruelty, but calm distance. The man who doesn't flinch when she tests him is the man who commands her deepest, instinctive attraction. You only learn this after being broken, after begging didn't work, after giving everything didn't work, after crying, pleading, promising it all failed. That devastation leaves you with nothing but silence. And in that silence, you finally realize power isn't in what you give her. Power is in what you refuse to give up your self-respect. So, the next time you feel the sting of withdrawal, remember she's not destroying you. She's presenting you with a battlefield. The question is, do you collapse or do you stand? Because every scar you carry from a woman's rejection, every betrayal, every dismissal, can either make you bitter or it can make you unshakable. And the men who win the dating game aren't the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who use it like armor. Have you ever begged for a woman's attention and realized later it killed her respect for you? What's the hardest moment of pain you faced in dating? And how did it change you? Which mistake do you see yourself making the most, overgiving, chasing, or losing yourself in her silence? Be honest in the comments. When you start to understand pain as training instead of punishment, everything about how you deal with women begins to shift. Before, you thought the only way to keep her was to constantly reassure her, to give more of yourself whenever she seemed distant, to prove that you were different from other guys, but that's the trap. Every time you give more when she gives less, you reinforce her control. You teach her that the less she invests, the more you will pour out. And once that dynamic is in place, you've already lost. Pain is the mirror that shows you how easily you fall into this trap and forces you to step out of it. Think of the man who spends weeks planning dates, sending flowers, writing long, heartfelt texts, while she gives back nothing but short replies and occasional smiles. He tells himself she's just busy, that she'll eventually see how genuine he is. But deep down, he feels the emptiness. He feels the imbalance. And then comes the inevitable moment she ghosts him. Or worse, she tells him she just wasn't feeling it. He is left gutted, wondering how giving more could lead to less. But what he doesn't see is that every extra effort he made without her matching it only confirmed to her subconscious this man has no value outside of what he gives me. And when a man becomes pure supply, he ceases to be a source of desire. Pain teaches you the exact opposite. Instead of giving more when she withdraws, you hold, you pause, you assess, you stop pouring into an empty cup. That restraint feels impossible the first time. It feels cold, cruel, even wrong. But restraint is what separates a man who begs for love from a man who commands respect. When you don't rush to fix her mood swings, when you don't collapse at the sound of "I need space," you're sending a deeper message. I'm not afraid of your distance. My worth isn't hanging on your affection. And ironically, that's what pulls her back. Because women test, and the man who holds frame in the test becomes 10 times more magnetic. Another layer of pain you've probably felt is the pain of comparison. Maybe she brought up an ex. Maybe she mentioned another guy's ambition. Maybe you noticed her eyes linger a little too long on someone else. It burns. You feel yourself shrink in that moment, as if you've been weighed and found lacking. Many men make the fatal error here. They compete. They overcompensate. They try to prove themselves right away. They brag. They show off. They demand reassurance. But the woman isn't comparing to destroy you. She's comparing to measure you. And if you show insecurity in the face of it, you've failed the measure. Pain teaches you to sit still in that fire, to know your value without rushing to prove it, to let her words wash over you without reaction, because you know your worth doesn't rise or fall on her passing judgment. Imagine she says, "My ex used to take me on spontaneous trips. It was so exciting." The weak man hears this and immediately scrambles to prove he can do the same. He spends money he doesn't have, forces energy he doesn't feel, just to erase the comparison. But the strong man, the one who has been burned before, hears it differently. He knows the subtext is a test. Will you get jealous? Will you break? Or will you calmly stand in who you are? So instead of rushing, he smiles, maybe says, "That's nice," and changes the subject. No reaction, no panic, no insecurity. That single act of stillness outshines any trip he could buy her. She feels it, she respects it, because he proved he can't be shaken by shadows of other men. The reason this works is because women are drawn to the man who remains centered. Every test, every withdrawal, every comparison is aimed at one core question: do you lead yourself, or do you let emotions lead you? Pain makes you confront your own lack of control until you build it. You stop reacting to every fluctuation in her attention. You stop needing constant proof that you're enough. You stop pouring into someone who isn't pouring back. And once you stop, once you master that restraint, the game flips. You no longer fear losing her. You start evaluating whether she deserves to stay. That shift, when you go from hunted to chooser, is when you finally step into the position of power. But here's the brutal truth you don't get here without suffering first. You don't learn restraint until you've been drained dry. You don't learn calmness until you've humiliated yourself with jealousy. You don't learn detachment until you've begged for attention that never came. Pain forces you to taste the weakness you didn't want to admit. And once you taste it, once you've had enough of your own desperation, you start to build the backbone you should have had from the beginning. That's why pain from women isn't just suffering, it's strategy. Every betrayal, every dismissal, every rejection is training. It's teaching you how to stop over-giving, how to hold your ground when tested, how to let comparisons roll off your shoulders, how to walk away when respect is gone. Each scar is a manual on what not to do next time. Each scar turns you colder, calmer, clearer, until finally, you're no longer playing just to keep her, you're playing to see if she's worth keeping. Have you ever overgiven to a woman who gave you almost nothing back? Have you ever tried to compete with her ex or her attention for other men, only to end up looking weaker? What's the one lesson pain has forced you to learn in dating? Share it in the comments, I want to know. There's another kind of pain most men never admit out loud, the pain of silence. Not the silence after a fight, not the silence of a busy day, but the silence where you can feel her drifting. You send the text. She takes hours to respond. You try to start conversations. Her replies shrink into one-word answers. You notice the warmth fade in her eyes when she looks at you, and you sit there, staring at your phone, waiting, replaying everything you said, trying to figure out where it went wrong. That silence is brutal. It feels like she's holding your heart hostage, and the worst part is you're the one who handed her the rope. Men who haven't been hardened by pain almost always react the same way. They chase the silence. They text again. They call. They try to make her laugh. They ask, "Is everything okay?" They think the silence is a problem to be fixed, when in reality, it's a test to be endured. Because silence reveals dependency. When you can't handle a gap, when you can't tolerate space, it shows her that you are still a boy searching for approval instead of a man who can stand alone. And once she sees that, once she knows her silence has power over you, she'll use it. Sometimes unconsciously, sometimes intentionally, but the result is the same. You become trained to dance for her attention. Here's the truth that pain teaches you: silence is not your enemy. It's your weapon. The first time she goes quiet and you don't chase, you reclaim ground. The first time she pulls away and you let her, calmly, without panic. You send the message no words could ever match. I do not beg. I do not collapse. I will not worship absence. That composure burns into her mind because so few men have it. Most scramble, most break. But the one who doesn't, he haunts her thoughts because she expected power, and instead she found her reflection in your calm detachment. Think about it. She doesn't reply to your message. Instead of texting again, you let it sit. You don't check your phone every 5 minutes. You don't spiral into overthinking. You move. You live. Hours later, she finally responds with a casual line. You don't rush to reward her. You wait. You respond when it fits your rhythm. No anger, no sulking, just unbothered. That's when the silence flips. She realizes she can't control you with withdrawal, and once she feels that, she respects you differently. The silence that was once her power becomes your proof that you stand taller than her games. But let's not sugarcoat it. Learning this hurts. The first time you decide not to chase, your body screams at you. You feel like you're losing her. You feel cold, guilty, afraid. Everything in you wants to fix it. That is the pain, that ache in your chest, that itch in your hands to reach out, that racing thought that says, if I don't do something, she'll leave. You have to sit in that fire. You have to let the silence stab you until you stop fearing it. That's how pain becomes mastery. Because once you stop fearing silence, you're free. Free from manipulation, free from control, free from the constant need to be validated. And freedom is the most attractive thing a man can radiate. This is why women sometimes pull away right when things seem perfect, not always consciously, but instinctively. They want to see if your confidence is real or fragile. They want to feel whether you'll hold your ground when she disappears into distance. She's not just testing you, she's testing her own attraction. Because no woman can desire a man she doesn't respect. And she cannot respect a man who collapses under pressure. Pain sharpens you into the man who doesn't collapse. The man who welcomes silence as a stage to show his strength. The man who forces her to come back, not because he begged, but because she felt the absence of his presence. Another painful lesson is realizing that silence reveals truth. If she pulls away and never returns, if she goes quiet and stays gone, the silence wasn't a test, it was her decision. And as much as that cuts, it saves you, because now you know you didn't chase, you didn't beg, and she still vanished. That's not your failure, it's her truth. And instead of wasting months in limbo, you face the reality fast. Painful, yes, but clean. And men who learn to take truth without flinching are men who never stay trapped in dead situations. They move, they cut ties, they rebuild. Pain cleanses their weakness and carves their clarity. So remember, this silence is where men are broken, or where they are born. The weak ones fill the void with desperation. The strong ones let the void speak, and it always speaks. It tells you if she respects you, if she values you, if she fears losing you, or if she never did. You just have to be strong enough not to run from the message. That strength only comes from scars. Only men who have felt the crushing weight of silence and survived it learn how to wield it. Have you ever chased after a woman's silence and realized it only pushed her further away? Have you ever sat in the silence and felt her eventually come back stronger than before? What's harder for you, facing her silence or facing your own fear of being alone? Drop your story below. There's a deeper kind of pain that most men carry in silence, the pain of betrayal. Not always the dramatic kind where you catch her in someone else's bed, but the subtle betrayals that eat you alive from the inside. The promise of forever that ended with her fading out of your life. The words "I love you" that stood side by side with messages she sent to another man. The smiles she gave you while she slowly built her escape plan. Those betrayals leave scars that aren't visible, but they cut deeper than any rejection. Because rejection hurts your pride, betrayal wounds your trust. It makes you question not just her, but yourself. The first time it happens, you think you're ruined. You replay the timeline, hunting for signs you missed. You blame yourself for not seeing it sooner. You wonder if you were never enough to begin with. That spiral is brutal. But here's what you eventually learn: betrayal isn't about your value. It's about her choices, her weakness, her hunger for validation that you couldn't and shouldn't be responsible for feeding. And when the pain clears, when the smoke of humiliation burns away, you realize that betrayal gave you something no calm relationship ever could: razor-sharp awareness. Betrayal trains you to see micro-signals you used to ignore. You start noticing when her phone is always face down. You notice the way her laughter changes when she talks to other men. You see the patterns in her excuses, the sudden bursts of distance, the shifts in her availability. Pain rewires your vision. You're no longer blind. You become alert, not paranoid, but perceptive. You stop living in the fantasy of what you want her to be, and you start seeing the reality of who she is. That awareness makes you dangerous, because most men are still stumbling in the dark while you can read the room like a book. And here's the crucial part: betrayal doesn't just teach you how to spot lies, it teaches you how to respond to them. The untrained man discovers the messages on her phone and explodes. He screams, he throws things, he begs for explanations. He shows her she broke him. But the man who's lived through betrayal before doesn't flinch the same way. He looks, he sees, and he withdraws, quietly, coldly. He doesn't need to shout because his absence is louder, and that silence is far more terrifying than rage, because she expects chaos. What she doesn't expect is a man who leaves with his dignity intact, without giving her the satisfaction of watching him collapse. Think of the battlefield this way: every woman knows she has the power to test, to tempt, to betray. But not every woman expects to be met with indifference when she's caught. That indifference is only born from pain you've already endured. Once you've felt the knife in your back, you no longer fear it. And once you no longer fear betrayal, you are free. Free because you don't cling. Free because you don't beg. Free because you know the worst has already happened and you survived it. That kind of freedom makes you untouchable. But there's another dimension. Betrayal also teaches you to betray back, not her, but your old self. The weak self that believed words without proof. The naive self that trusted blindly. The desperate self that thought keeping her happy was your mission. Pain kills that man, and in his place, a colder, sharper version of you rises. You stop asking, "Does she love me?" and start asking, "Does she respect me?" You stop trying to hold on to women who drift, because you've already felt what it's like to be stabbed while holding on. You learn that letting go is power, not loss. This doesn't mean you become bitter or closed forever. No, it means you become selective. You no longer invest just because she's pretty, or because she gives you a few sweet words. You measure, you watch her actions, not her promises. You look at how she treats you when there's nothing in it for her. You see if her loyalty holds when temptation walks into the room, and if it doesn't, you don't cling, you cut. That's what pain trains you to do: to cut fast, clean, and without hesitation. That decisiveness is what keeps men from wasting years on women who were never built to stay. And here's the final edge betrayal gives you: it makes you unpredictable. Women are used to men begging when they're caught. They're used to emotional outbursts, dramatic scenes, desperate pleas. But the man who's been through betrayal before doesn't play that script. He's calm, he's clear, He's already accepted that anyone can betray, and that he can walk away. That calmness shakes women to their core, because suddenly they realize they don't have power over you, not even the power of their worst weapon, betrayal. And when a woman realizes she cannot destroy you, she either steps up or she fades out. Either way, you win. So betrayal, as devastating as it feels, is not your end. It's your training ground. It's the crucible where your illusions burn and your spine is forged. And when you rise from it, you carry a silence and a strength that no sweet words, no fake promises, no half-hearted loyalty can ever manipulate again. Have you ever been betrayed in a way that made you question everything about yourself? Did that betrayal make you colder or sharper? And now that you've lived through it, do you trust women less, or do you simply trust yourself more? I want to hear your story in the comments. The final layer of pain is not silence, not rejection, not even betrayal. It's the pain of erasure the moment you realize she no longer sees you as the man she once desired. This is the slow death of attraction. The way she used to hang on your words but now barely looks up when you speak. The way she once touched you with urgency but now avoids your hand. The way her laughter with you fades into polite smiles, while her laughter with others still rings genuine. That kind of pain cuts deeper than any fight, because it's not loud, it's quiet. And it leaves you asking, how did I disappear in her eyes while still standing right in front of her? This is the pain that transforms men most brutally, because it forces you to confront how easily you can lose yourself in her gaze. You start remembering all the times you bent your boundaries, ignored your instincts, sacrificed your mission just to keep her comfortable. You thought you were being loving, you thought you were being a good man, but really, you were trading away your fire piece by piece, until all that remained was a dim glow she no longer respected. And when respect dies, love follows. That's when she erases you, not always by leaving, but by staying, while treating you as if you no longer matter. Most men respond to this erasure with desperation. They try to reignite attraction by giving more, pleading for affection, overcompensating with gifts, trips, and grand gestures. They chase the memory of who they used to be in her eyes, not realizing that the very act of chasing confirms why the memory is gone. You cannot beg your way back into respect. You cannot plead your way back into desire. Once she sees you as less, your only path is to become more, not for her, but for yourself. That's the brutal lesson pain teaches you. So how do you flip erasure into power? You stop fighting to be remembered by her, and you start rebuilding yourself. You step back into your mission, the work that sharpens you. You reclaim the boundaries you let slide. You rebuild the body you neglected, the discipline you abandoned, the silence you feared. And in that rebuilding, something shifts. You stop chasing her memory of you, and you start creating a reality she can't ignore. That shift makes her feel something rare, a sense of loss. She remembers the man she first met, but now he's stronger, calmer, sharper, and for the first time, she fears she no longer deserves you. That is how erasure becomes leverage. When she tried to erase you, you resurrected yourself in a way that made you untouchable. But here's the most important part sometimes. She never comes back. Sometimes, the erasure is permanent. And that truth hurts. It feels like failure, like death, like proof that all your effort was wasted. But it isn't. Because in losing her, you found yourself. You learned that the deepest pain a woman can give you isn't losing her, it's losing yourself in the process of keeping her. And once you understand that, you never make the mistake again. You stop living for women's validation. You stop bending yourself to fit their approval. You stop shrinking to be loved. You learn to stand alone. And that aloneness doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels like power. This is the secret most men never discover. The pain women give you isn't designed to destroy you. It's designed to expose you. Every silence exposes your dependency. Every rejection exposes your overinvestment. Every betrayal exposes your blindness. Every erasure exposes your weakness. And once exposed, you have two choices: collapse into bitterness or rise into clarity. Men who collapse become cynical, broken, forever chasing but never trusting. Men who rise become unshakable. They don't hate women. They don't fear women. They simply no longer worship women. And that is when women respect them most. Because in the end, power in dating doesn't come from being adored. It comes from being unmovable, from being the man who can face pain without losing himself, from being the man who doesn't need her validation to breathe, from being the man who knows that the worst she can do is leave and that he will still stand. That calm, that detachment, that steel in your spine is what makes you win the dating game. Not because you manipulate, not because you chase, not because you overpower, but because you no longer collapse. Pain didn't break you. Pain trained you. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.